All aboard! Welcome to the All Aboard podcast. I am your host, Brandon DeFreitas. It has been a long time, and for our league mates and our fans out there, just want to say definitely excited to be back. We have our rookie only draft in our dynasty league happening tomorrow, so I wanted this return podcast to be something special, and it's going to be a mock draft for our rookie only draft tomorrow. Said really poorly because it's been a long time. We're rusty here, but we're gonna roll with it. For the most of everyone in the league knows, but anyone out there who doesn't, Jojo and I recently had our first child, Theo, and we're excited to welcome him to the world. And definitely, 3 months in here, it's been a great, enjoyable ride, and a little bit more time in the schedule to start doing things like the podcast again and the fantasy draft. But I don't want to take up a lot of time here, early on, and don't want to. I know we're trying to get this done in a shorter period here with the free Zoom account. Um, so we're gonna jump right into the mock draft. As the parameters here, I've been, I have no picks in this draft. I traded them all away. Classic me move, of course. And as a result, I've been talking to almost every owner in the league, especially, Ben, John B, Tam, John Canelos. I spent a lot of time talking to these guys and Mark as well. I know I'm probably leaving you guys out, but um, I've gained a lot of intel on what I think is going to happen in the draft. And I thought it'd be fun to record a mock draft the night before, reveal some of this intel to the league. And then tomorrow, this will be released post draft. And you guys can see what I thought going in based on the intel I gathered, how close I came to what actually happened, and kind of get an unedited version of what do I think of the picks before you make them. So I'm not just saying, oh, Jim made a terrible selection, Jim's trash. No, we're not going to do that. I might say it here on this podcast and it will stand, it will stand because it was done before the selection. So with that here, let me just share the draft board and we'll hop right into it. I appreciate everyone bearing with me as we go through getting used to this once again. So we have the draft board here. I can zoom in a little bit more. Unfortunately, it's on Sleeper, it's a little bit tough. You only get like this much of a view. During the draft, you'll be able to see the teams down here. Luckily, you guys don't see anyone start or anything like that. Um, John B has the first pick, and this will be interesting because the teams aren't labeled, but I do believe I know it pretty well. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I'm just going to select the player. Bijan Robinson goes to John B. Ooh, I like the little noise. I wonder if that's coming through the recording. But I think it's pretty obvious John's going to go with the elite running back in round one. The John B. Atlanta Falcons. He'll now have Bijan, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Tyler Algier. I mean, John just loves the Falcons. He may as well move to Atlanta at this rate. But I think this has been decided for a while. It was um, the Bijan Robinson lottery. John won it. And I think there's one player who kind of entered his mind briefly, which would be Anthony Richardson, just in this super flex format, and Anthony Richardson having, that combine he had. And honestly, like when you go back on the tape, I know guys like Nate Tice at the Athletics say that, he's making fairly, impressive progressions as a quarterback, and thinks that he's been unfairly sort of bucketed in the Will Levis category as a quarterback when in reality he was doing more advanced stuff on the field. So I think the dual threat ability of Anthony Richardson makes him interesting at the 101, and John had to think there. He said he did, consider it, but it was always Bijan, and I think it's going to remain that way. And that gets to the first really like turning point of the draft. And Travers goes on the league message board. He unfortunately can't attend tomorrow. And he's like, he has the second pick and the fourth pick. So he wanted to figure out what's going on with the third pick, so he could tell us before the draft in case, he's unable to reply. Spoiler alert, we're gonna make sure he's able to reply. But he announced his pick, and some people thought it was a smokescreen. Travers had told me a couple days ago that Jahmyr Gibbs was the pick, and he already made his decision. So we are going to lock in Jahmyr Gibbs, if I can actually remember how. Yep, there we go. Jahmyr Gibbs at the second pick. It's interesting. I do think there's a top six this year. Bijan, Gibbs, JSN, and the three quarterbacks. But in the super flex format, I do have to question like Gibbs over Anthony Richardson is it's almost malpractice to me. Even over Bryce Young, I just of the top six in that tier, and you could break it up into a tier 1A, tier 1B. Gibbs was my least favorite, and it was just with his size. I'm not sure he's going to take the full load. And, he's under 200 pounds, just under 200 pounds, but they signed David Montgomery to a sizable contract. I know he's electric, but it's hard for me to see Jahmyr Gibbs having like a ton more. I mean, he'll maybe more, but like how much more than the DeAndre Swift role is he going to have? So I just think taking him over a potential game changer, like if Anthony Richardson hits on his ceiling, when Travers is sitting there with Pat Mahomes and Anthony Richardson, that is a hot core for him. So I think he's kind of making a little bit of a mistake here, taking Gibbs. I felt the same way about Ken Walker, and we'll get to that later here when we talk Zach Charbonnet. But yeah, I think prioritizing running back where his team is and passing on Anthony Richardson is a bit of malpractice. Getting to the third pick, Will Tam. This is where the intel really gets interesting. There were talks between Tam and Ben, and I know initially I think it was the sixth pick. Um, Alex and I can't say that number with TH at the end, but it was the sixth pick that Ben was dangling for the third. Up to today, I believe Ben was talking about the fifth pick for the third, trying to trade up desperately because he loves Anthony Richardson. No surprise to Tam, he knows it. But I know talking to Tam and hearing, Tam's reaction through Ben as well, Sam said all along, I was considering it. I wanted one of the top three. I wanted one of the quarterbacks. He was worried if Travers went Richardson, if Tam traded out, and then Ben went quarterback and Travers went two quarterback. Sam's like, I couldn't end up without a quarterback. But the one thing he said that was interesting was he said, I never considered the possibility of Anthony Richardson being there at 103. So Tam really thought Richardson was going 102. And now that Richardson's there, it's hard for Tan to pass it up. And I thoroughly agree with his thought process because if you have Richardson and Trevor Lawrence, that's a great potential young core at quarterback that he can build around and build a championship roster. Versus if you look at, I like CJ Stroud a lot. I think he's like the most sure thing at quarterback in this rookie class. The problem with CJ Stroud is I do think his upside is a little bit limited. I think you're looking at maybe getting like a Dak Prescott type, which is great. I'm the Dak Prescott owner, no complaints. But I mean, Anthony Richardson's a potential game changer, and you know, Ben's willing to pay a price for sure. I don't remember what it was. It might have been like 2 seconds to move up, something along there. But even if a trade chart sort of says that's where it's at, the value of an Anthony Richardson is that much more. So if I were Tam, I would not consider it. However, is he going to consider it and make the trade between now and the draft? It's possible. It definitely is possible. But either way, whether it's Tam or Ben, and I'm saying in this mock it's Tam, Anthony Richardson goes at 103. Which brings us to 104. It's Travers again. Hope we can reach him. I can't imagine Travers is going to pass on quarterback again. If he did, that would just throw everyone for a loop. If he took like Jackson Smith and Jigba here, oh man, I mean Dietz would probably go two quarterback, but I really think, and Travers has sent me a board from a previous draft. I believe it's going to be Bryce Young. Hard to go wrong with the 101 in the NFL draft. So he takes away Bryce Young and Jahmyr Gibbs, starting to think Travers only watches Alabama. Um, we get to the 105 with Dietz, and I know all along, from talking to him, his nightmare scenario was the three quarterbacks go after Bijan. and he gets Gibbs. I was, yeah, I think Gibbs JSN was his nightmare scenario. No, it wasn't. I stand corrected. If you swap out Gibbs for JSN, Gibbs and Stroud was Dietz's nightmare scenario. He doesn't dislike CJ Stroud from talking to owner Dietz. I think where Ben's coming from is he doesn't see the same upside as an Anthony Richardson, and he doesn't like the organization, the Houston Texans, and doesn't believe that they'll surround him properly to help him be successful. I feel a little bit differently. I think he's just such a good quarterback prospect. I actually like him, as I said, better as an NFL quarterback prospect than Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson. So I don't think you can go wrong with CJ Stroud, but I do see the upside sort of being capped. Where I'll push back is I don't see how Bryce Young at his size really has more upside than CJ Stroud. I don't think Bryce Young is a creator. I see that. You can see it all over the film in Alabama, but I don't know that he's going to really pile up rushing yards in the NFL. And he's smaller too. So I don't know. I kind of push back. I think CJ Stroud might have a higher ceiling than Bryce Young in the NFL potentially. But either way, I think it's pretty clear. Dietz is going to run to the board, get his Ohio State wide receiver, Jackson Smith and Jigba. After celebrating in the pool when I picked Olave last year, Dietz finally gets his own. And we don't need to spend a lot of time here. I think it's CJ Stroud. One little nugget here, though. Dietz has been talking about trying to see if there's interest in this pick with CJ Stroud. That's how much he's not totally sold on taking him there, but it sounds like he's narrowed it down to one owner and particularly looking for the 2024 draft, a first round pick from this owner. Um, I'm trying to think if I can reveal. Yeah, I think I can. Great. Then totally apologies if I reveal this that I shouldn't have, but it's John Canelos. Ben really wants that first round pick, that 2024 first, because John's in a tanking year, and you have Caleb Williams, Drake May, Marvin Harrison Jr., Brock Bowers. So that lottery pick is going to be worth so much next year. The thing is, and I've told this to Ben, John knows this, and I don't think John's going to make that move. Maybe he does tomorrow, and that I would be shocked. And I will say on this podcast, and again, I don't want to offend anyone personally whatsoever, but if John makes that move, I don't like it for the rebuild. I think he's all in on the 2024 draft, and he should be all in on the 2024 draft. And getting like a Caleb Williams or a Marvin Harrison, that's why you tank and hold your draft pick. If you trade it, even for a prospect I like in CJ Stroud, I just don't like that from a process perspective. So will be very interesting to see. But I think this pick is going to go up on the draft if CJ Stroud falls, which I believe it will. Now I'm pretty confident to this point, to be honest, talking to the owners. If Gibbs goes here, I'm pretty confident this is what's going to happen. Um, yeah, he would take Smith and Jigba before putting the pick up. He's not going to put it up and have potentially JSN taken. Then you get to my pick. I obviously don't own it, but Will Tam's on the board. It's time for the Spider-Man meme because there is a next tier to me, and it's the first round wide receivers in the NFL draft. Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnston. And then to me, Zach Charbonnet belongs in that list. And we're going to get to Zach Charbonnet in a little bit. So that's the top 10 to me, and I have a clear tier break personally after that top 10. So I do think talking to the owners, Cam's eyeing receiver, John B's most likely eyeing receiver, and Mark, I know he's eyeing a particular wide receiver. So I'm going to start it off here. The player I've heard the most buzz from Will Tam, Jordan Addison, who is also the player I'm hearing John B wants. So you're getting kind of the Spider-Man meme that happened last year with JMO between Tam, myself, and Mark. Then you get to John B, and this is where I think it could get interesting because Mark wants Quentin Johnston to pair with Justin Herbert. And I heard today Quentin Johnston was moving up John B's board a little bit. So I think John B, it's between Addison, Charbonnet, and Quentin Johnston. And let me just recheck his text messages. There's been so many. He was, trashing on my team for being old earlier today. I'm just kidding, John. Yep, QJ Sharp. Actually, he says QJ Charbonnet, Will Levis. So Will Levis is potentially in the consideration here for John. I don't think he does it at the end of the day. John loves the bigger receivers, so I'm gonna lean in on this mock to Quentin Johnston. That's interesting. Will Levis here. According to my latest text, direct from the Apple Watch. Um, except that I'm not wearing the Apple Watch, but whatever. You get the point. That puts Mark here at 109, who eyed Quentin Johnston bad. It's good I'm not releasing it, but I told Mark I was going to record. He's like, who do you have going 109? Well, Mark, I'm not going to tell you it's not Quentin Johnston, because then you're going to know, oh, I should probably hop John B or hop Will Tam. So I told Mark, wouldn't you like to know? But to me, it's Zay Flowers and Zach Charbonnet would be the guys I would be considering if I'm Mark. He was eyeing receiver. I know he wants to build through receiver. Mark does believe in that long term with youth. So personally, my favorite of the first round receivers is Zay Flowers. And I'm gonna say he goes here to Mark. The order of this receivers could definitely get wild. Addison. So here's what I know. I don't think Addison gets past John B, even if Tam goes a different direction with the first pick. Could Tam trade down because he likes Zay Flowers or Quentin Johnson too? I don't know, but I think Tam likes Addison and Flowers. John B is Addison Johnston. Mark, I know he wants Johnston, and I think he's eyeing receiver others. So that's sort of where we're ended up there. We got through that tough part. We're at Jimmy at 110. I said per my board, and now all my prep for what the first nine were, this is where I'm confident from like an intel perspective, outside of Ben's intel, where Ben called me this afternoon and was like, here's what I'm doing at each position in the draft so that you can get your mock right. I love that, Ben. Thank you very much. But outside of Ben, it's going to get really foggy here in the second round. So it should be a fun ride. But Jimmy, I don't really know what Jimmy's thinking. And part of this is there have been trade talks between my team and Jimmy's team regarding the 10th pick. Jimmy wants the 2025 one, Chigakonkwo, and a third round pick. And that wasn't like I'll definitely do this. That was kind of like his starting point. I re-offered without the third round pick. I haven't heard from him today since offering at 1150. I was excited at 1150. I'm not as excited now. It might not happen. But if I was on the board, it would be Zach Charbonnet. So that maybe I go that way in the mock. Maybe I say I trade for the pick. At this moment in time, I'm feeling a little less aggressive, feeling like maybe I should hold on to the pick, not shoot my shot. But I do love Zach Charbonnet. And that was a perfect time, I think, for me to get into my little Zach Charbonnet rant. My thing with Charbonnet that I think some of the analysts in the industry are sort of missing is the Seahawks picked him pretty early in the second round. And everyone's like, oh, Ken Walker, sure, the efficiency stats weren't great, but he had these he had 17 runs over 15 yards, or I might have that backwards or something like that. He had a lot of long runs comparable to Saquon as a rookie in that respect. But if the Seahawks really liked Ken Walker, I don't think they're drafting Zach Charbonnet in the second round that early. I don't believe in it. And maybe you could say Pete Carroll did that. I still don't really. Yeah, Pete Carroll did it when he had Chris Carson. He got as a 7th round pick, and then he picked Rashad Penny. But I truly believe that there are parts of Ken Walker's game, specifically pass protection and pass catching, very important for fantasy, that he does not trust Ken Walker with. So I actually believe Zach Charbonnet is the more valuable player for fantasy than Ken Walker this year. And I could look like a clown with that take, but I truly believe it. And I think Charbonnet is going to be heavily used. There was a blurb on NBC Sports that it's Roto World again. So Roto World today that sort of like brought that up too. And I'm like, oh boy, like right before the draft, I'm trying to get in here at 110 for Charbonnet. So I would pick Zach Charbonnet. I've heard Jimmy doesn't like Zach Sharp. Well, I haven't heard that he doesn't like Zach Charbonnet, but I heard he was eyeing potentially a receiver here and liked Jaden Reed more than Quentin Johnston, was going to shoot his shot, but then started to consider draft capital. Per source, per source, obvious source, Ben. So I am going to go with the intel I have. I'm going to say I don't trade into the draft, and Jaden Reed is the 10th pick. A little spicy from Jimmy. But boy, does that starts something off here. And Ben talked to us on the phone. He loves Dalton Kincaid and he wants Kincaid, but Zach Charbonnet has fallen in this draft. And let me take, I think Ben was talking like he's got Travers here, then John, then we got Ben, 4 picks in a row. I think what moves the needle for Ben and what would if I were him is Zach Charbonnet is such a value here. And you pass on Kincaid, you still have the next best tight end, in my opinion, Sam Laporta. You can grab in your run here, or you grab him at 210, assuming he gets through Canelos and DeMelon. So I believe if this iteration happens, Zach Charbonnet goes to Ben at 201. And I'm picturing it. Ben's like, I called you today, and that's not what I was going to do. That would be freaking hilarious. But that leaves Travers here at 202. Travers is a big fantasy pros rankings guy, and he really needs tight end. So when I look at what remains on the board, I guess I'm just on the tight end, but it's Kincaid, Devon A-Chain, Michael May. I could pull up Travers' board that he sent me earlier, and maybe I will. Let's see. It was not super flex, but what? Let's see. What did he have? This is how important the mock is. It doesn't seem like I have a limit on time here, which is pretty sweet. So we might be able to do this all in one. Let's see. Will Travers. We don't text that much, buddy. So Kincaid, he has a tight end 1 at 9th overall player. Yeah, that's over Devon A-Chain at 12. So unfortunately for Ben, I think that means Kincaid goes. So if he wants Kincaid, I think he's got to pick him there. But I think you take Charbonnet and then potentially Laporta later and take the value at a guy that should have gone round 1, in my opinion, in Zach Charbonnet at the 201. That leaves Canelos at 203. And I'm going to make this very quick because I think he always had his eye for Will Levis. And I don't think I'm going to defend John a little bit because Will Levis is kind of a polarizing player in the fantasy community and the rookie drafts. People like to rag on him. But the thing with Will Levis is I don't think John loves Will Levis, but you have a player here who's going to get an opportunity, I believe, this year. He's going to have the first crack at replacing Ryan Tannehill with the Titans. And that has value in our super flex format. And getting it here in the second round, I think that's a screaming value. I know from talking to Ben, he would not pick Levis and would actually put him up for sale at 207. So Ben doesn't really, the value is not enough for Ben to go in. But I sort of think that's a mistake because even if you hate Will Levis, you can put him on your taxi squad in our format and have an exemption to our 4 quarterback limit. So I think the value's there. John's in a long-term rebuild. He traded down, he picked up additional picks. And I believe Will Levis, who was in consideration for John B., this is the first Will Levis potential landing spot. I think he was in consideration at 107, and John played the board saying, I don't think he gets picked. I trade back. I grab Will Levis here, pick up additional assets. And if that's what John did, I think it was a great trade for him today. If he was going to pick Will Levis at 107 and he traded down and got picks and picks him at 203, that is a great trade for John. Where I think I disagree with John on the value would be I would have gone Zay Flowers personally at 107, and I'd probably prefer Zay to Will Levis. I'd probably take the higher pick. But I'm not John. And if he wanted the quarterback, I think this was a genius move for him to move back and get the player he wants. Very Belichickian. Very Belichickian. Now we get to the Deets run, and this one's gonna be we're just gonna put Kendre Miller because this is the player where if Ben did not get Kendre Miller in this draft, or does not, this is the night before. I I don't think I'm gonna be able to look him in the eye. I really don't. This is gonna be a sad, sad man. And it's interesting because I did a mock with Tam a couple days ago. Tam said when he was at 203 before the trade up to 107, that he was picking Kendre Miller all the time. I did not share said info, of course. Um, but now with the trade, I think the benefit to Ben is instead of Levis, a player he doesn't like potentially being there for him, his boy Kendre Miller is there, and I think he smashes the accept button. Ben's been pretty consistent all offseason that there's a running back run here, and he loves the depth of the running back class. They didn't get the draft capital that a lot of people necessarily thought they would, but I do think he goes on a running back run here, and he's been saying that for a while. So I think you're going to see Kendre Miller go off the board, Tajay Spears go off the board, and I want to make sure I'm meticulous about this. So I'll also bringing up my board to make sure I'm getting this right. Miller, Spears, A-Chain's there. So I think A-Chain's in consideration. I think he waits on Laporta just because of the tight ends. I think he can afford to wait there. And I know he likes Marvin Mims. So I know Marvin Mims, you are a fatty cat. So Marvin Mims goes. And then this is where it gets interesting because I think for Ben, it's between Sam Laporta. I don't believe he would go Mingo here. I think Mingo, if he fell, he's not really a big Josh Downs guy. He does not like Tank Bigsby. So it's Devon A. Chain or Sam Laporta. Laporta probably gets in the consideration here for John and Mark. So I think this is tough. I know he's not an A chain guy. That's what makes it tough. But oh Ben, what would you do? I didn't pay enough attention, I guess. If he misses on Dalton Kincaid, and you get the live reaction, I'm sure he's loving this. Oh my, I think he'd probably put the trade up for the pickup for trade, but I ultimately don't think he'd draft Devon A. Chain. I think he takes Sam Laporta. He loves Sam Laporta. I think he's going to take him. So he gets two running backs in the run, Marvin Mims and Sam Laporta. John runs up to the podium. Does he run up to the podium to take Devon A. Chain? I think he does. There's also Jonathan Mingo. And I wish I could look up John's roster here, but he's currently got Will Levis. He kind of needs a little bit of everything long term. I could see him going running back. Mingo, A Chain, third round pick. Starts to get real tough here. Starts to get Michael Mayers there, but John's pretty stacked at tight end. I think he runs up the pick with well, here's the other thing. John likes production, and Mingo doesn't have production. So we've narrowed it down. I think he takes Devon A. Chain who falls. John, I honestly, I told you guys, this is where it's going to sort of get a little bit difficult, but it's going to be fun. Mark now at the 209. And now you're probably just reading off my board. Everyone's going to know my board because I don't want to go down a tier. But let me just go down a tier, check it out. Mark could use a tight end, and Mayer is sort of a screaming value. It's Mayer, Mingo, Downs, Bigsby. That's sort of what you're looking at. I think this is a good spot for Michael Mayer and its value at this point. Mark just traded away George Kittle, potentially gets the next guy in Michael Mayer with the Las Vegas Raiders. We get back to Deets at 210. Feel like I'm taking an exam. Like, how well did you retain the intel from Ben? I know Ben really wants Zach Evans. I think it's okay to say here on the pre-recorded podcast. Be an idiot if I forget and post this tonight. Oh, I'd be so pissed. I wouldn't do that, guys. Don't worry. Um, so yeah, I have Josh Downs, Rasheed Rice, Jalen Hyatt at receiver left. I could go here. Rasheed Rice, yeah. Mingo. If Mingo fell, he would be. I mean, this guy was picked at the eighth pick of the second round. I know, I believe he doesn't like Tank Bigsby or Rojo. He wouldn't take Zach Evans this early. I think Mingo. I think this is where you go, Mingo. I'm not huge on Mingo, but I mean, you're looking at a guy who's traits and draft capital, and I think Ben at the end of the day would make that selection. He wants 304 from Alex, in order to draft Zach Evans. Well, I'm looking at the board right now. It's Tank Bigsby. You know, we're in the third round, and you can kind of see guys already like far you guys are going to be feeling great about these picks. I'm painstakingly going through this. I don't love the players here, guys. I'm sorry. I don't think it's a great third round. It's better than Mitch Trubisky, John B. So yeah, you still got a great deal there. But I don't love this round. The last two I have in my previous tier are Downs and Bigsby. I don't think Ben likes either of them, so you go down to the next tier. I don't think he likes Rasheed Rice or Jalen Hyatt or Roshan or Abanikanda. Abanikanda don't want no. So and you already went quarterback. I think Ben at this point in the draft says, I can't reach Alex. I'm taking my boy. I'm shooting my shot. He has dug deep on Zach Evans and truly believes in him for the Rams running back position. So I think Ben caps it off with Zach Evans. And I wish, yeah, can I get this? Oh, slot. What slot are you, Ben? Five, six? I think you're six. Let's just see. Will it actually like update properly? Yeah, here we go. Final Ben tally. Got double check because he's all over the place. Stroud, Charbonnet, Miller, Smith and Jigba, Mims, Laporta, Spears, Mingo, Evans. Holy crap. That's pretty nice. All right. Well, I hope I did it well here. I don't know. I feel like my memory's fading as I get older. So hopefully I appropriately did this. We get to John B. This one looks pretty obvious to me because Tank Bigsby is sitting there. He's a previous tier for me. He's the natural handcuff for Travis Etienne. So I'm going to take Tank Bigsby here for John B. That one was nice and easy. And we're going to go try. I'll try to go a little faster. We got Will Tam at 303. I have Downs. A lot of people do like Rasheed Rice. He went to the Kansas City Chiefs. Tam, I mean, he doesn't really need. Hmm, I forget if he needs tight end, if I'm going to be honest. We can reveal that on this show. It's a safe space. I'm going to say Rasheed Rice is a value here and just go with maybe he doesn't like Josh Downs that much. Leaving us with Alex. Alex is one pick in the draft. Seems like that Keishon Butte, New England. That would be a terrible selection. Um, I mean, Downs is available. Does Alex go there? Does he go Roshan? Oh, you know what? Is there a yeah. We're going back. I forgot about Roshan Johnson because of my own. I think John likes Roshan over Tank Bigsby. Do I think that? Oh, this is tough. You know what? I would go Tank Bigsby, John, but I know he likes Roshan. So I'm gonna say, yeah, he's going Bigsby. He's going Bigsby. And then Tam, I'm sorry. Tam knows about Roshan. He goes Roshan in Chicago. Over Rasheed. Now he goes Rasheed Rice. This is hilarious. Alex comes in. Does he go Roshan? Well, Josh Downs is up there. Roshan's up there. He's going to research that. I think he takes a chance at running back. He needs a little bit of depth there. Alex takes Roshan. This is really shoot from the hips guys at this point. Jimmy, there are some tight ends available. Josh Downs is there. I think I think Jimmy would go Josh Downs. He's a nice, solid player. Could be a productive flex for him, and I really like that value here in the third round. John B. And guys, I again, I don't like this third round that much. We're done with my tier of 27. So have we done 27 players? We've definitely picked. That's a tier of 22. So I still have a Banacanda. Hooker's Hendon Hooker's still on the board. Look at this. Would anyone have picked Hendon Hooker? Maybe John B. Hendon Hooker's going here with the value at quarterback. There you go. Congrats, John. I don't know where he's necessarily going, but I'm going to say there. Although it seems like, nope, we're going back. We are going back. This is all right. I'm being ridiculous, but that's Tam. Tam already drafted a quarterback. That's Alex. Tam. All right. Jimmy takes Hendon Hooker to secure his Jared Goff. That makes more sense. And then I think John B would go Josh Downs. I think he's a solid player. So here we go. We're back on track. We are back on track. John Canellis, um, Jalen Hyatt, very productive. This is a and I don't blame him here at the spot. Jalen Hyatt, and I say it's a John Canellis because John loves college production. I've been fixated on it since he's a big Corey Davis guy. I feel like he really does like the guys who are really productive in college. And Hyatt in the third round here is a pretty good value. So I'm gonna throw Hyatt there. I do know John likes the depth at running back in this class too, which makes it interesting, but I think Hyatt's kind of a screaming value. Um, don't tell me Rishi Rice is told yet. This has been a disaster in the third round, guys, because I don't like these. But I'm done with my tier of 27 players. Have I dipped below it? I don't know. Zach Evans was the only one I dipped below. So we're probably at 28 players selected. No, we're at 27. That doesn't make any sense. We must be at 28. Two, three. No, we're at 27. Who did I miss? Oh, a Banacanda. A Banacanda's in my 27. I have a top 27, and then it really fades off to UDFAs. So I do have a Banacanda. The eighth pick is Mark. No. Ninth pick's Edwin. That's Jimmy. Eighth pick is John. So John kept his eighth pick. Did he? Yeah. That sort of makes sense. Yeah. Ben, B, John. Where's Mark? That's Mark. Yeah, it is Mark. Okay. We're back on track. This is John again. So Hyatt, I knew he liked the running backs. So Chase Brown or a Banacanda? Probably Chase Brown. Probably Chase Brown. I'm gonna take Chase Brown. Tam, a Banacanda would be perfect behind Brees Hall. So we'll go Banacanda. And then Mr. Relevant for John B. Definitely not. I think running back is like used up now. This is why I don't really agree with the running back. I think there was supposed to be running back depth in this draft because guys like Sean Tucker were expected to go earlier. Deuce Vaughn was kind of interesting, but he went in the sixth round. So I don't really think there ended up being as much running back depth as people really sold going into this draft. And it's gone here at the end of the third round. I don't think we're going to see very many of these UDFAs being too interesting. Um, which is good. I'm saying that because this is being released before I put in my UDFA bids. Um, Tillman's definitely interested. There's definitely interest intriguing at receiver. That's probably where John goes. And there are tight ends. John does not need a tight end, and there's so many that I feel like he doesn't go there. So Tillman, Michael Wilson, Tyler Scott. I'm gonna say he goes Tillman. I think John B. He's a sizist at wide receiver. Goes Cedric Tillman. We did it. We did it. We finished the mock draft. That third round was tough. Just going through this exercise again, a couple things stand out. For a draft that was sold for being really deep, I don't feel as confident in those third rounders as I felt last year. Um, and there are receivers with draft capital and tight ends still available. Some okay backup quarterbacks, but really it's not as deep a draft as I think people sold. I like the top 27, which for me was through a Banacanda. If you ignore Chase Brown, so basically a Banacanda, my top 27 that I had second round. Did I have second round grade on Banacanda? I don't think I did. No, third round grade. Yeah, I had 27 players with draftable grades through the third. No, that was through the early third. And yeah, that was after let me do it this way. Yeah, 27 players. So Abanikanda is one, not Chase Brown, not Zach Evans. Sorry, Deets. So everyone else here, Abanikanda, Hyatt, and over, other than Zach Evans, I had as through the early third round. I had some other third round grades I won't talk about because the UDFAs and I gotta put in some bids, but um I just didn't feel like this third round was as deep as we said it was. And maybe that's just my selfish look as someone without picks. But um as a quick recap, I think the interesting stuff is Gibbs at 2 really shifted things. Richardson, I don't think Cam trades. I have a tough time believing John's giving up his 2024 first for CJ Stroud. Maybe I get in the 10th pick. Mark really wants Quentin Johnston. Charbonnet, that's who I really want. And then the Charbonnet Kincaid for Dietz is big. Kendre Miller to Dietz after that trade. Canelo's trading back for Levis. Stroke of genius if he was going to take him there. Um, and you can see how I feel about the tight ends. Maybe some other people go tight end in round 3. So I don't know. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you got some feedback and how I felt about some of your moves and how I feel talking to you guys. And I want to say I appreciate everyone talking to me too. I didn't, reveal anyone's specific info to other people. I just kind of like hearing about it. And half the fun for me is having these conversations with you all. So thank you. And I thought it'd be a unique opportunity for me to see how accurate I can get. From sitting here today, I think I got the top 9. I wouldn't be surprised if I get the order right either. It really goes to crap after 10. In the second round, I think I got the players right. Yeah, I think I got the player. If there's anyone, I'm looking at this. I don't like Rashee Rice or Tank Bigsby, maybe push into the second round. But I would be surprised. Like, I really think the second round is the top 20 for this draft. I had a top 22, so that's Bigsby and Downs for me. I really like Josh Downs. If you end up with him, give me a call if you're willing. So anyway, appreciate you guys listening. Went a little longer than I thought we would, but this is always a lot of fun. I'm excited to host you guys. Thank you again for being part of the league. And for anyone not in the league watching, any of our fans, really appreciate you getting back on the horse. We'll try to do these more frequently. And the new DeFreitas Enterprises studios moved downstairs as a dad now. So anyway, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Brandon DeFreitas from the DeFreitas Enterprises studios. We'll see you next time.